Imagine a menu where a $1 ultra-processed patty sits beside a $150 gold leaf Wagyu steak. Suddenly, the $15 grass-fed burger feels like an educated, safe compromise. This is the illusion of choice, a decoy pricing strategy manipulating your nutritional awareness. But the deception gets molecular. Authentic flavor develops through the Maillard reaction, a complex browning process requiring a strict thermal threshold of 285 degrees Fahrenheit or 140 degrees Celsius. Cheap manufacturers bypass this completely. To fake that savory crust on budget foods, they rely on synthetic caramel coloring loaded with the chemical 4-methylimidazole. You instinctively trust that rich, roasted appearance as a sign of quality. But what if the very first food on our list is sitting right in your fridge, relying on this exact chemical disguise? Picture the grocery store aisle. On one end, a $40 imported artisanal truffle sausage. On the other, a 99-cent pack of commercial hot dogs. Suddenly, that $7 pack of 100% all-beef uncured Franks looks like the optimal, informed purchase. Why? The 99-cent option relies on mechanically separated meat. This isn't butchery. It is a high-pressure extraction process that forces bones and edible tissue through a sieve, creating a paste fundamentally devoid of quality muscle protein. To mask this and ensure shelf stability, manufacturers bomb the mixture with synthetic preservatives. The USDA strictly limits these additions, like sodium nitrite, to 156 parts per million. Why? Because while that exact chemical threshold is required to prevent deadly Clostridium botulinum spores from developing in the slurry, consuming higher concentrations introduces entirely different risks to your cellular health. But if you think synthetic nitrites in hot dogs are alarming, wait until you see the microscopic mold thriving inside the next everyday staple hiding in your pantry. We often grab a $2 table sauce, entirely unaware it is little more than colored vinegar and chemical additives. On the opposite extreme, artisanal pure pepper extracts command upwards of $200. Yet the educated palate finds the logical middle ground, a $12 naturally fermented jalapeno sauce. Why? It comes down to capsaicinoid extraction and the true nature of Scoville heat units, or SHU. Cheap, highly processed hot sauces rely on harsh oleoresin capsicum, essentially synthetic heat blasted with artificial dyes, to mimic authenticity. They bypass complex, naturally occurring pepper blends, leaving only a shallow, one-dimensional burn. A naturally fermented sauce, however, develops organic lactic acid, preserving the intricate flavor profile while delivering real, unadulterated heat. Uninformed consumers buy the cheap sauce thinking they save money, but they are just paying for dyed water. But if you think synthetic heat in your hot sauce is deceptive, wait until you discover the engineered illusion hiding inside the modern bread aisle. Consider the standard $3 packet of water-injected deli ham. It represents a masterclass in chemical weight manipulation, not food. Highly processed sandwich slices are routinely injected with tetrasodium pyrophosphate, an industrial compound designed to force myofibrillar proteins to absorb and retain significantly more water by weight. You are quite literally paying for chemical hydration. Contrast this with an $80 imported Iberico ham leg, which relies on thyme and traditional bacterial fermentation, using Lactobacillus sake to develop its flavor profile safely and naturally. But you don't need to spend $80 to eat like an educated consumer. A $10 locally roasted turkey breast offers the pristine, unaltered protein you actually need, without the daily laboratory science experiment. The educated choice is always about recognizing what is hidden in plain sight. But while tetrasodium pyrophosphate is quietly inflating your lunch, an even more deceptive chemical process is sitting right now in your pantry, masquerading as a heart-healthy morning staple. If you wander down the dairy aisle, you might be tempted by a $2 tub of spreadable margarine, especially when sitting next to a $40 imported French cultured butter. Suddenly, a $6 block of domestic grass-fed butter seems perfectly reasonable, and biologically, it is a bargain. For decades, the public was sold partially hydrogenated oils. When the devastating health impacts of trans fats were finally dragged into the light, the industry quietly pivoted. Instead of returning to natural fats, they developed chemical and enzymatic interesterification. This highly industrial process forcefully rearranges the fatty acids on a glycerol backbone, altering the fundamental triglyceride structure to achieve the exact plasticity of butter without traditional hydrogenation. You are spreading a synthetic molecular mosaic on your morning toast. We simply do not yet know the long-term metabolic consequences of digesting these rearranged lipids. But if manipulating the geometry of fat molecules sounds alarming, Wait until you see the microscopic deception hiding inside our supposedly fresh fruit juices. Let's look closely at the grocery store bulk bin. A $5 scoop of pre-shelled mixed nuts seems economical, especially compared to a $50 artisan, vacuum-sealed imported jar. But the smart purchase is the $18 bag of whole in-shell nuts. Why? The moment a nut is removed from its protective casing, the lipid oxidation curve of its polyunsaturated fats begins to plummet. Atmospheric oxygen invades the delicate oils, turning them quietly rancid. You are essentially paying for damaged cellular structures. Consider the macadamia nut. Nature engineered its armor to endure an astonishing 300 pounds per square inch of pressure before breaking. When manufacturers shatter that shell months early, they strip away a biological vault, exposing it to rapid decay. You might think you're eating pure, healthy fat, but oxidized lipids quietly trigger microscopic inflammation. Fortunately, protecting your body is simple. Always crack them yourself. But speaking of invisible chemical reactions, wait until you discover what happens to the molecular structure of our next food. Consider the shelf of an average pantry. On one end sits a $1 box of instant white rice. On the ultra-premium end, a $30 wild-harvested macrobiotic grain blend. The educated consumer safely bypasses both, selecting an $8 bag of heirloom brown or black rice as the optimal nutritional middle ground. Why? That $1 box represents a metabolic disaster heavily disguised as modern convenience. To achieve their rapid cooking time, instant refined grains undergo aggressive parboiling and high-temperature dehydration. This brutal manufacturing process forces the complete gelatinization of starch, permanently disrupting the natural amylose-amylopectin crystalline structure. Without this intact matrix to slow down digestion, your enzymes instantly convert the grain into pure glucose, triggering a massive rapid glycemic index spike that severely punishes your pancreas. You are essentially eating sugar packaged as a savory side dish. But while instant grains quietly sabotage your insulin sensitivity over time, our next highly processed food actively attacks your cardiovascular system using a synthetic lipid compound so thoroughly engineered, it was originally patented as a cheap alternative to industrial wax. Reclaiming your health does not require a $1,000 a week private chef. That is an industry illusion. When you compare a $50 week of ultra-processed convenience foods to that luxury extreme, a $150 whole food grocery haul suddenly emerges as a deeply attainable lifestyle victory. True nutritional literacy starts with vigilant label reading. You must intentionally break the dopamine-driven habit loops forged by hyper-palatable formulations. As you eliminate excess sodium, refined sugars, and high-fructose corn syrup, your neurochemistry physically adapts, restoring your palate's natural sensitivity to real food. Rethink your pantry. Empower your choices and step away from the engineered trap. But before you completely overhaul your kitchen, you must understand the invisible dangers flowing right out of your faucet. Next time we expose the tap water lie.